G'day guys, and welcome back to another episode of FullPower Pillock in this god-awful sweatbox that I'm in. It's 9 o'clock at night, and it's still over 30 degrees. That's like 86 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm dying. Okay, let's move on though, because we have a fantastic block. What we have is none other than the AUTOCRAFTER. So we're in Java at the moment, and I will jump into Bedrock once we've had a bit of a look here, but let's go over some of the rules with these new blocks that we have. So basically, as you probably have seen on many other channels, you can block them off and you can basically control what actual item slot is going to be used. So in this case, you can see basically oak logs is going to get turned into oak planks. Nothing too crazy, although I have noticed that with the actual redstone signal strengths, that it starts to get rather interesting. So under this, what's happening is that we've basically got all of the other 8 knocked off, or blocked off I should say, and we've got an item in one slot, and that actually yields a signal strength of 9. And I was just definitely double counting then, but yes. So if we have a look at this one though, we'll see that the signal strength is actually 1 less, which is only 8. The reason for that is because there's no item. So we can actually tell if there's an item in these, which is fantastic. Well, yes and no. We can tell if there's at least one item in there. It doesn't tell us if there's all the items like a stack of 64 or if there's only one item in a slot, but we can at least tell that there's an item in here. So if we were to have a look at this one, so this is currently at signal strength 6, and this one actually has nothing in it, but we've only blocked off 6 of the slots. So you can see how if I disable all these, it actually disables them all. And if I put 1, then we get 1 off to the side here. If we put 2, 3, we get 3 to the side. These are really handy for actually putting out signal strength just by itself, because you can just instantly choose what you want it to be. And so if I revert it to this, it will be 6. Now, if we were to look at it in comparison to this one here, now this one's 6 and this one is 9. The reason why this one's 9 though is because we have at least one item in each slot. So if I take away the items, then you'll find that it goes back down to 6, goes up to 7, goes up to 8, and then finally goes up to 9. So what should happen in pretty much every case is that we should have a signal strength of 9 for every single one of these each time that we go to use it, or before we actually go to make anything. And that's the way that we know that it works. So for instance, if we have a look at the pink one over here, also has a signal strength of 9, but this is filled up with blocks, and these are actually being detected because each of these blocks adds a signal strength. So it will always be a signal strength 9 if we can actually send a pulse to it and actually make it to make something. Make it to make something. Oh my god. I'm so delirious with the heat. It's so hot. Okay, so again, same sort of thing. We can't tell if there's one block or if there's 64. We can only tell if there's something in here. And that's fantastic. So anytime that we get a signal strength of 9 out of these blocks, it means that we can make something. That's easy, done, solved, not a problem. And my initial thoughts of having something that represented this was a little contraption like this. So quite simple. We have a comparator coming out with it being in subtract mode, which is that little light there. And we have another comparator, and we're using this for a natural signal strength. So obviously this is signal strength 8 with everything aside from the middle one being clicked. And that would mean that as long as we get a signal strength 9 out of this one, then it would basically mean that we get the piston moving this into the hopper clock, and then we can basically just take out the signal, have a little bit of delay to the redstone torch underneath. Now, that seemed like it was going to work. I did, however, forget that it was actually in Java edition, and the second that you actually engage this, you will notice very quickly that nothing's getting picked up. The reason why this is occurring is that the actual torch here is powering this block, and yeah, the whole bud powering thing. So yeah, not going to work. So we had to redesign. That's okay though, because we can work with something a bit more simpler. And this is the same sort of circuit. So all that we have again is the comparator in subtract mode. We've got our other one that's tucked into the side, of course. And then we have simply, if we get a signal out of here, then we have it going into the extender and it goes into the piston. Piston engages out and then powers this redstone using our little tiny, what do we call these? Target blocks. Target blocks. I'm delirious with the heat. Send help. So these target blocks are fantastic. If you don't know this trick, I use it sometimes. I don't use it as often as I should. But as soon as you put it in there, it actually changes where the redstone goes. It's fantastically good. And so we use this in the same sort of setup, but this time we have a few different changes. Now, I've added some honey blocks in, and you might actually be able to have these closer together. I haven't tested it closer together, but the reason why I had them separated out was initially I didn't have the honey blocks there. And my thought was that I wanted to have a bit of a gap difference. See, the problem is, if you don't actually have items go into the AUTOCRAFTER in the right order, it all breaks. It's really, really important that you actually have things go in the right order, which is why honey blocks are so fantastic. And so if we have a look at this, we've got obviously the iron, and then the stick. So remembering that our crafting recipe has to be the inverse of what we would normally make. So for instance, if we would normally have a crafting recipe over here for a sword, we need to actually fill it up from the top left and then go down. So it goes across in lines and then it will basically go through. So we need to put in the iron, and then the stick. So you have to sort of think about crafting in reverse. And that's how you do it from here. So if we go to the right one, first of all, that's probably a good idea, and engage it, you'll see that it slowly comes down fantastically, and out pops our little sword, which is fantastically well. And these honey blocks are amazing. I was originally using the spider's web. Don't use that. That's painfully slow. Very painfully slow. You might also be able to use water. I didn't find the water worked as well. The honey blocks are really fantastic with these though. They are really good. So there we go. Now, if we were to go one step further, and what we can do with this one now is basically, I was just changing it up so that we have it a little bit more professional, down to a single button, so it's a little bit more like you would actually use inside something along the lines of a farm or something like that. Now, so obviously crafting recipes for cakes are a little bit more complex. They actually require 9 items, not 3, and it's a lot more of a tricky system. And we have this. Okay, so this is pretty cool. So, gotta remember, of course, that our crafting recipe is in reverse. So normally these would be at the top line, and then this would be your middle line, and then this would be your bottom line. But again, it has to be in reverse for this all to work. And I was going to actually make this completely automated from start to finish until I realized cow's milk cannot be automated. I did not know this. Like, who knew that? As far as I could tell, you can't seem to dispense a milk jug out of a cow. Well, that's great. I mean, it's not really that big a deal. Who's going to build an auto cow farm? That's just ridiculous. But as you can see, quite simple, nothing too crazy. And we also have a bit of a system at the back here. Now, this system is nothing too crazy. It's probably easier to build something vertical that just allows you to put a signal strength through all of these. But what we're doing here is that as long as there's an item in here, then we're just getting a signal out, and it's basically depowering the hopper, depowering, I'm dying, depowering the piston, so that then the piston allows for the minecart to go down, till eventually it goes down to here, where we have a detector, and then it sends the redstone signal up, powering them all, and Bob's your uncle should be all good. So only one of these is missing anything, as we can see from the signal behind, and that would be one of our milk buckets. So if I was to grab one of our milk buckets from here, then that in fact should activate the entire system. And here it goes, all beautifully in line. The honey blocks work fantastically. And down, 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 and finally a cake. Isn't that fantastic? This is the most elaborate way of making a cake in Minecraft, but it's fantastic and I love every part of this. Now, the other thing that you've got to remember is that, of course, it also dispenses out the buckets and it actually gets to keep those. So what I've done here is just made a very simple system, because it's going to try and dispense the buckets into this pot here. And pots now make sense. I mean, this is kind of useful. Wait until I show you the BEDROCK version. That gets really crazy. But from here, all it is kind of like an item sorter. Kind of. See, what will happen is that this will dispense into the pot, and the pot basically has a signal going down. Looks very, very much similar to our item sorter sort of circuit. In fact, it pretty much is one. It's not really any different. And from there, all it does is when we have one come in, then it just basically unlocks this hopper so that we can have our buckets obviously come down, and we keep the main one here with a little bit in, but also enough to be able to keep on dispensing out. But absolutely fantastic. I love this. Now we got to look at the BEDROCK version, because this is where things are going to go absolutely insane. Okay, and we're over in BEDROCK. So this is the kind of things that we can expect to see. So this is obviously not making the cake, because mainly this gets a bit hard with this sort of configuration with non-stackable items such as the actual milk buckets. But that aside, this is pretty cool. So out of this, you'll see that, again, the crafting recipe is the same thing, upside down, complete back to front. So the first thing, well, the top first things are at the start, and then we move down and across. And from here, a very similar sort of redstone mechanic. I did have to obviously change the pistoning. Jumping between Java and BEDROCK, the flying is a little bit different. That's okay. But yeah, basically the same sort of thing. Nothing too sort of crazy. Obviously, we still have the same signal strength here of 8, and we're just doing it in subtract mode. This doesn't use the piston because, well, it kind of was a bit easier this way, but again, using the target block. So all that we're doing with this one is we're using these little tiny sort of locking systems of the pots. So what will happen is that these pots are now actually going to operate as a feed-in system, and it's only going to allow in whatever item we choose and program in here at the front. As a community, these pots, people had no idea what to do with them. Everyone knows that they're useful because they operate kind of like their own item sorting function, but by itself, no one could really put their finger onto what the actual use of these are meant to be until these AUTOCRAFTERs came out. You see, these basically provide a very simple, small, and compact form of actually getting items in from something. I kid you not, Mojang, when it comes to these pots, just playing completely 10,000 IQ. This is fantastic. All that this is basically a very simple system again, very similar to what you saw before, but a much, much more compact form where it's basically just the pot, getting the signal strength out, and then basically putting it into this torch and locking the hopper next to it. Ignore these redstone blocks. That's not what they're for. These redstone blocks are used for actually a feed-in system for the pots. Let me show you. You see, if we go down here, so this seems a bit strange. I know redstone flying machines are a little bit different in BEDROCK, but if we have a look here, we've got a line of hoppers, and how these actually work is, if I give it a moment, in fact, it's a bit loud, so I'll move away. And what's happening is that those redstone blocks are actually stopping those hoppers from feeding into the hopper below the pots, so that only the pots can actually receive items, and the hoppers that are below it can't, because the redstone blocks are there. So that's pretty cool if you think about it. This is a complete system where it's just allowing items to feed in. The reason why I've got so many of them is that hoppers moving and also putting in items, not the greatest, so having 5 is really a great idea. But we can send it straight back down, and again, same sort of thing. Doesn't need to be in any particular order, because it's just basically supplying the whole system with a few different things. And isn't that a work of beauty? Let's just enjoy that for a second. Being able to see hoppers move around, feeding systems and things like that. This is how Minecraft is meant to evolve. I can see why the Java guys get so jealous of just that one simple functionality of being able to move hoppers on flying machines. It is such a work of art being able to see that in vanilla Minecraft. Now, as to our actual machine here, if we have a look in, we don't have any items in this one. I've removed the actual pots. You don't need to remove them, but I've just removed them because it just made it a bit simpler. So if we actually have a look down here, we'll see that the top 2 actually locked off, and that's what we're actually seeing represented here, where this pot's not there and that pot's not there. But the rest of them should have items in, like books and diamonds and obsidian, diamonds, so on and so forth. So for those of you who haven't guessed what this is actually going to make, I'll give you 3 seconds before we hit off the button, and off we go. So same sort of deal, where basically it's going to send down the items. This one's just powered by a flying machine because I like flying machines. And any second it should come through with a hey, there we go. So it's an enchanting table. So yeah, this is a bit more of a complex design and something like that. So it is a lot more interesting. And I have realized just now, if I'm completely honest, that this doesn't work. You see, you would actually need to move this observer somewhere else. Maybe the redstone line was a better idea in the Java version for this side, but this side with the item supplying is fantastic. It's just absolutely beautiful. The way that it works in such a simple form with the pot and with the AUTOCRAFTER, this is Minecraft to get excited about here. This is the one point that you really, really want to get excited for Minecraft. And it's so simple. Like, this stuff is not what we'd call complicated sort of redstoning. This is not, trying to build computers. This is fairly sort of simple stuff. And if you look at the requirements of getting into it, okay, redstone blocks, you could probably swap them out for, say, just any old wood block or something like that, and just add a torch onto each side of each one. So that's a bit cheaper that you do. There is a few hoppers in here. Yeah, that's not really cheap actually, but the pots are definitely quite cheap. The other side of things, of course, yeah, you really want to have a redstone line in here. I was just trying to have a bit of fun with this one, and I'll show you why you don't want to use a flying machine. It's because it only works in one direction. So now it's going to feed everything in completely backwards. So if we start having a look in here, this is not the crafting recipe we're looking for. No, that's completely wrong. That's not how you make that. Okay, but if we do it one more time. No. Stop. Please. There we go. Okay, let's have a look. And there we go. Book should be diamond, obsidian, diamond, and then 3 pieces of obsidian. Yes. And any second we'll get the final pieces coming down, and out it comes. Fantastic, isn't it? Absolutely, truly amazing sort of Minecraft. So yeah, we'll keep on playing around with these sort of things, but yeah. These things are absolutely fun. Get ready for a whole bunch of crazy contraptions, because these are really going to make things a lot more fun. And not only that, like even just for the use of trying to have a particular signal strength coming out, fantastic, because I can just modify this signal strength just by clicking buttons. That's so much more easier and better. And I've got to leave before I faint, because it's really hot in here. I still got to edit the video for all the things that I say completely wrong. Yes, that's right. The stuff that makes it in is the stuff that I say somewhat remotely correct, and the things that I scrub out are completely terrible. So I'll catch you in the next one, guys. See yas.